Chapter 2 of Discouragements from Without. 1. Outward causes of discouragement. 1. God himself, who sometimes withdraws the beams of his countenance from his children, whereupon the soul even of the strongest Christian is disquieted, when together with the cross, God himself seems to be an enemy unto them. The child of God, when he seeth that his troubles are mixed with God's displeasure, and perhaps his conscience tells him that God hath a just quarrel against him, because he hath not renewed his peace with his God, then this anger of God puts a sting into all other troubles, and adds to the disquiet. There were some ingredients of this divine temptation, as we call it, in holy David at this time, though most properly a divine temptation be, when God appears unto us as an enemy, without any special guilt of any particular sin, as in Job's case. And no marvel if Christians be from hence disquieted, when as the Son of God himself, having always enjoyed the sweet communion with his Father, and now feeling an estrangement, that he might be a curse for us, complained in all his torments of nothing else, but, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46. It is with the godly in this case as with vapors drawn up by the sun, which, when the extracting force of the sun leaves them, fall down again to the earth from whence they are drawn. So when the soul, raised up and upheld by the beams of his countenance, is left of God, it presently begins to sink. We see when the body of the sun is partly hid from us, for totally it cannot, in an eclipse by the body of the moon, that there is a drooping in the whole frame of nature, so it is in the soul, when there is anything that comes between God's gracious countenance and it. 2. Besides, if we look down to inferior causes, the soul is oft cast down by Satan, who is all for casting down, and for disquieting. For being a cursed spirit, cast and tumbled down himself from heaven, where he is never to come again, he is hereupon full of disquiet, carrying a hell about himself, whereupon all that he labors for is to cast down and disquiet others, that they may be, as much as he can procure, in the same cursed condition with himself. He was not ashamed to set upon Christ himself with this temptation of casting down, and thinks Christ's members never low enough, till he can bring them as low as himself. By his envy and subtlety we were driven out of paradise at the first, and now he envies us the paradise of a good conscience, for that is our paradise until we come to heaven, into which no serpent shall ever creep to tempt us. When Satan seeth a man strongly and comfortably walk with God, he cannot endure that a creature of meaner rank by creation than himself should enjoy such happiness. Herein, like some peevish men which are his instruments, men too contentious and bred up therein, as the salamander in the fire, who when they know the cause to be naught, and their adversaries to have the better title, yet, out of malice, they will follow them with suits and vexations, though they be not able to disable their opposite's title. If their malice have not a vent in hurting some way, they will burst for anger. It is just so with the devil, when he seeth men will to heaven, and that they have good title to it, then he follows them with all dejecting and uncomfortable temptations that he can. It is his continual trade and course to seek his rest in our disquiet. He is by beaten practice and profession a tempter in this kind. 3. Again, what Satan cannot do himself by immediate suggestions, that he labors to work by his instruments, who are all for casting down of those who stand in their light, as those in the psalm, who cry, down with him, even to the ground. Psalm 137:7, a character and stamp of which men's dispositions we have in the verse before this text, mine enemies, saith David, reproach me. As sweet and as compassionate a man as he was, to pray and put on sackcloth for them, Psalm 35:13, yet he had enemies, and such enemies as did not suffer their malice only to boil and concoct in their own breasts, but out of the abundance of their hearts, they reproached him in words. There is nothing the nature of man is more impatient of than of reproaches, for there is no man so mean but thinks himself worthy of some regard, and a reproachful scorn shows an utter disrespect, which issues from the very superfluity of malice. Neither went they behind his back, but were so impudent to say it to his face. A malicious heart and a slandering tongue go together, and though shame might have suppressed the uttering of such words, yet their insolent carriage spake as much in David's heart. Psalm 39:1. We may see by the language of men's carriage what their heart saith, and what their tongue would vent if they dared. And this their malice was unwearied, for they said daily unto him, as if it had been fed with a continual spring. Malice is an unsatiable monster, it will minister words, as rage ministers weapons. But what was that they said so reproachfully, and said daily? Where is now thy God? Verse 3. They upbraid him with his singularity, they say not now, where is God, but where is thy God, that thou dost boast so much on, as if thou hadst some special interest in him? Where we see that the scope of the devil and wicked men is to shake the godly's faith and confidence in their God. As Satan labored to divide betwixt Christ and his Father, if thou beest the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread, Matthew 4:3, so he labors to divide betwixt Father and Son and us. They labor to bring God in jealousy with David, as if God had neglected him, bearing himself so much upon God. They had some color of this, for God at this time had veiled himself from David, as he does oft from his best children, for the better discovery of the malice of wicked men, and doth not Satan tip the tongues of the enemies of religion now, to insult over the church now lying a-bleeding? What's become of their reformation, of their gospel? Nay, rather what's become of your eyes, we may say unto them? For God is nearest to his children when he seems farthest off. In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen, Genesis 22:14, God is with them, and in them, though the wicked be not aware of it, it is all one, as if one should say betwixt the space of the new and old moon, where is now the moon? Whenas it is never nearer the sun than at that time. Question. Where is now thy God? Answer. In heaven, in earth, in me, everywhere but in the heart of such as ask such questions, and yet there they shall find him too in his time, filling their consciences with his wrath, and then, where is their God? Where are their great friends, their riches, their honors, which they set up as a God? What can they avail them now? But how was David affected with these reproaches? Their words were as swords, as with a sword in my bones, etc. Verse 10, they spake daggers to him, they cut him to the quick when they touch him in his God, as if he had neglected his servants, whenas the devil himself regards those who serve his turn. Touch a true godly man in his religion, and you touch his life and his best freehold, he lives more in his God than in himself, so that we may see here, there is a murder of the tongue, a wounding tongue as well as a healing tongue. Men think themselves freed from murder if they kill none, or if they shed no blood, whereas they cut others to the heart with bitter words. It is good to extend the commandment to awake the conscience the more, and breed humility, when men see there is a murdering of the tongue. We see David, therefore, upon this reproach, to be presently so moved, as to fall out with himself for it. Why art thou so east down and disquieted, O my soul? This bitter taunt ran so much in his mind, that he expresseth it twice in this psalm. He was sensible that they struck at God through his sides, what they spake in scorn and lightly, he took heavily. And indeed, when religion suffers, if there be any heavenly fire in the heart, it will rather break out, than not discover itself at all. We see by daily experience, that there is a special force in words uttered from a subtle head, a false heart and a smooth tongue, to weaken the hearts of professors, by bringing an evil report upon the strict profession of religion, as the cunning and false spies did upon the good land. Number 1327, as if it were not only in vain, but dangerous to appear for Christ in evil times. If the example of such as have faint spirits will discourage in an army, as we see in Gideon's history, Judges 7, then what will speech enforced both by example and with some show of reason do? 4. To let others pass, we need not go further than ourselves, for to find causes of discouragement, there is a seminary of them within us. Our flesh, an enemy so much the worse, by how much the nearer, will be ready to upbraid us within us, where is now thy God? Why shouldst thou stand out in a profession that finds no better entertainment?